Hi, everyone. Oh my gosh. It's the first episode of season 2 of Lap It Like It's Hot. Can you believe it? Uh, well, before we dive into the 7 news articles that dropped while we were on holiday break, because as we know, IndyCar has been kind of quiet in the news cycle. Just wanted to take a moment to just reflect on 2025 a little bit with all of y'all. First and foremost, to everyone that has supported and listened to us in our first year of Lap It Like It's Hot, thank you. We really genuinely appreciate it. It has been such an incredible year on and off the track, and Melena and I have had such an amazing time getting to be able to sit in front of a mic and yap and gossip and talk shit and talk about something that we love, which is IndyCar and racing. So thank you so much for being there for us during that first year. It's crazy to think that we were sitting at a table on New Year's Eve on 2024 going, we should definitely do this. And the fact that we were able to achieve a New Year's resolution, which I know sometimes it's hard. And I know many of us are building our vision boards for 2026. And some of those goals we put on there don't happen in that year. But this one has definitely been one of those goals that I was happy to say, oh my gosh, we did it. We did it. So first and foremost, thank you to everybody who has supported us, especially our friends and our loved ones. And for all of our listeners, I hope you had a wonderful holiday break. Melena and I had a wonderful break. It was so nice to disconnect, not only from the podcast, but also for just the holidays and spending time with friends and family and ringing in the new year. And man, 2026 is already here. We're only a few weeks away from the green, goodness, checker. No, not yet. I want to watch the race. The green being dropped at St. Pete. And man, I hope that, the IndyCar world starts to spice up a little bit, which I know we'll get into when the episode kicks off. But before we get started, just wanted to pop in here and on behalf of Melena and I just say thank you. Thank you for a wonderful 2025. 2026 looks amazing already. And if 2025 was the benchmark of what amazing can be, I could only see us going up in 2026. So let's get started. So it's going to be a solo episode with me, Monica, today, and I wanted to take a little bit of time just to talk about some news that was dropping while we were away on holiday break. Spoiler alert, there was not a lot of news, which, when you think about the holidays, I don't think teams are going to want to bring in any huge news because people are disconnected. They want to spend time with friends and family. So whatever, I'll give it to the IndyCar, press release teams and media teams to not drop any news, but we are a few weeks into January, so we had some new updates. I would say maybe not news or spicy worthy things, but just some updates that have been kind of bubbling in the media world. So the first thing is around Katherine Legge. So as we know, Katherine Legge did not race the Indy 500 in 2025, but there have been rumblings of a potential double in Phoenix with NASCAR and with IndyCar. And with conversations with Katherine over whether or not she'll be, thinking about possibly doing a double in the Phoenix race, which is crazy to think. When you think about double, you think about Kyle Larson in the Indy 500, for example. But how cool would it be to have Katherine not only race in the NASCAR series, but also then race in the IndyCar series? And I don't know how that would be possible. Maybe we'll talk about that Dale Coyne seat. We know we haven't heard much from it, but just the opportunity of doing a double in Phoenix I think that would be really cool. But in regards to the Indy 500, I know that many of us do know that she participated in 2024 with Dale Coyne and brought the incredible ELF sponsorship to the grid. ELF showcase in Gasoline Alley. Oh my God. I was so jealous that I was not there that year because I'm like, oh my goodness, this little pit stop moment is exactly what we need in this sport. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to secure a ride in 2025, but she does have support still with ELF. And I know that her I don't want to say profile, but more people are talking about her in the NASCAR world, where I'm thinking it may be really great to see if we can have her be back for the Indy 500 in some capacity. So conversations have been happening with Catherine, and she has a desire to do it. And I think every year she wants to do it. And she's talked very openly about how special it is to race at the Speedway during the Indy 500. But if she's able to do something in Phoenix, maybe splash some water around engagement and excitement about the fact that this kick ass woman is doing both NASCAR and IndyCar races in Phoenix, and, hopefully she does well, then maybe more sponsors and more opportunity will become available for her for the 500 ride. So more to come there, but I do think we need Catherine Legg back on the IndyCar grid for the 500 and put her in some good machinery. Like, I would love to see her, in a car that she can compete in the front and have the opportunity to not have to worry about bump day or any of those things, but really, really kick it off with, maybe something better than, in the 20th, 21st position. So I know many of us are fans of Catherine Legg, and so we really do hope that we'll get to see her on the grid at some point, either in Phoenix or at the Speedway in May. Speaking of ovals, I know Melina and I have fangirled a lot about Mick Schumacher joining RLL for the 2026 season. Well, a date has been officially set for Schumacher to do his first rookie oval test. And it's going to be in February. So it looks like February 4th at the Miami Homestead Speedway. And as we all know, IndyCar Oval fans, we know that it is required for him to pass this rookie oval test before he can actually compete in Phoenix. So when we think about that piece, like, ovals are such a new thing, especially for someone like Mick who's never done it before. So having him test in Miami Homestead and then also doing another test in Phoenix a few weeks later, and then doing another test in Indy in April, it'll give him the opportunity to not only have tests and get in the car, get comfortable for weeks on end, but also give him enough time to get situated for the Indy 500, let's be honest. So especially with RLL, he's having a full-time season. Nick's not doing just road and street courses. He's doing the whole damn calendar. So for somebody like him who's never driven on an oval before, getting him on track, getting familiar with how to use your tools in the car and understanding the new hybrid system and all of the things that go into oval racing. This is something that's new to him. This is going to be new muscles that he's going to have to flex. And there has been conversations around Mick getting, support from a veteran IndyCar driver and kind of doing what TK did before he really took off into the other positions at McLaren, being more of that driver coach to say, hey, I know I came from the Formula One world or, the European, world. And I understand that this is how you drive this, but when you're in IndyCar, it's better to try it this way. You see so many of these drivers like Roman Grosjean who have come, even Marcus Ericsson, who have come from F1. And it still takes them a little bit of time to get used to driving these IndyCar Dallara cars because they're not the same, right? So we will definitely be, I don't want to say stalking, but checking out the socials the week of February 4th, just, breadcrumbs of what Mick is doing and, time and scoring and how he did and lap times and all that fun stuff. While it would be great to see him be super awesome and kick ass and be like, oh my gosh, he took to the ovals really well. We all have to also take some time. He's learning the ovals. We all know Marcus Armstrong, his first year in IndyCar, he didn't race a full season. He had Takuma race the ovals for him. So a lot of drivers do this half and half type of season situation. But in reality, like, he is jumping in 2 feet first into the IndyCar pool. So I just want to say, Mick, good luck. We're all rooting for you, and we can't wait to see what you do during your tests in Miami Homestead, and then see you in Phoenix. We'll see how all that goes. But it's good he gets an oval before the 500. I like that. I like that schedule, especially for some of these rookies, right? Could you imagine, Mick, like, yes, you've seen everything from Monaco and F1, and you've been at some of the largest races around the world, but the Indy 500 is its own beast. And not only do you have to do this for the first time and deal with new qualifying situations and, fast six and, bump day and all of that fun stuff, at least he can get one oval under his belt, even if it goes horribly wrong. Let's be honest. Even if it goes horribly wrong in Phoenix, he still will have a better opportunity to be more successful in Indy, just because sometimes it just takes a few times for him to get used to it. And he's going to be probably freaked out and scared. And he's going to be thinking, oh my God, I have a spotter in one ear. I have the engineering stand in another. I have to figure out how to use the roll bar. And I got to figure out what they say, what the hell it means to say, don't forget to use your tools, Mick. Like, this is a whole different ballpark. And so we have to give him some room. Give him some room. And Mick, I think, will do really well. So we definitely have been talking a little bit around not only the new technical inspection team and all of that fun stuff that was happening about the officiating board, but apparently the officiating board has met for the first time. They met before Christmas. And so for those of you who are not familiar with the third party, not associated with Penske Entertainment, who owns the IndyCar series, for those who don't know, they have now launched an officiating board, which is a third-party board to kind of take over overseeing IndyCar races and all of that, all of the technical inspections. And this goes into push to pass gate and attenuator gate and insert cheating scandal here, and then talking about other things around race control and all of that fun stuff. So it consists of three individuals. So you have Ray, and I'm going to butcher these names. So you're going to have Ray Evernham, Raj Nair, and Ronan Morgan. And with Nair's background with Ford, you have Everham's management experience in just racing in general. And Morgan actually had experience within the FIA. So you have three individuals who have motorsport experience and third-party experience. And they were able to meet before Christmas and kind of just start thinking about what's going to be the reason why they're there, right? What's going to be this plan? They're going to be hiring a director of basically officiating. And who is that going to be? I'm assuming they're probably not even, it's January. They're interviewing right now, right? Because you need to have this individual locked in, ready to go, sign the offer letter, get your butt over at Indianapolis or wherever. And you got to start really understanding what's going on and meeting the teams and the team owners and all of the jazz that goes in with that. So they had the time to chit chat, and they're also, going to see how they can oversee the IndyCar races, especially from an event management perspective. And that's what I found really interesting. So with a lot of the races that we have on the IndyCar schedule, a lot of them are done through a third-party promoter, right? I know that there's one promoter who does multiple races, like the promoter, I think they promote for Portland, and I think they promoted for Texas at one point, in Iowa. So you have different third-party promoters that own the promotion of IndyCar. And I think that's where you got a little bit of that inconsistency around the promotion of what's happening in the city, right? I know there were a lot of conversations the first year that Milwaukee was back on the calendar. A lot of the drivers, a lot of the fans were like, where the hell is the local Wisconsin promotion, right? I'm driving down the highway and I see a NASCAR ad or a NASCAR billboard, but I have no idea that there's an IndyCar race coming back to the mile. There's no activations, there's no buzz. But then you go to Nashville and it's like the proverbial IndyCar red carpet is rolled out when they have these activations on Broadway. They have drivers going into the Gibson garage and looking at guitars. You have drivers having after parties at Tootsie's. You have all of this buzz, but then you go to some races and it's just like, there's a race. Okay, it ended. Bye. And so I do think it'll be interesting to see what ideas this team can bring more awareness and buzz to the IndyCar races and the fan experience, right? From event promotion, you also have the event experience, right? I won't name names, and you can go back and listen to some of the episodes of where we have gone where the experience wasn't so great. But there were some races that Milena and I went to, and it was literally it felt like a high school like track and field PTA event. You had like it was just asphalt, couple booths where you can get water and food, and just like the merch stands and like the Pato shop. And it's also in the middle of nowhere. So you're like, okay, why would I want to come here early, sit and watch the Indy Next race if there's an Indy Next race? So, and then, go to the race, right? But then you go to some places like Mid-Ohio and Barber and Road America where there are these standalone road courses and they have so much awesome stuff that you could do. And then you go to some races and you're like, yeah, maybe I'm not going to come back. Right? So it'll be interesting to see what they get to do with all of that fun stuff. But speaking of kind of investing in this officiating board, IndyCar has gotten some new technical inspection truck and tools. It was introduced earlier this week that Penske has introduced a new technical inspection trailer for its independent officiating board, not only to enhance regulatory compliance in IndyCar, but it also gives them the opportunity to grow with technical advancements in the future. So if you're thinking about, 2028 is when the new chassis for Dallara, the Dallara IR28, it's going to be crazy to think that, we've been saying Dallara IR12 for so long, but the Dallara IR28 is going to have different bodywork and different, components for a legality assessment. So these new trailers and trucks and tools are going to give the IndyCar technical inspection team the opportunity to grow once these new chassis are created, but gives them the opportunity to not only, this is the cool part, they'll be able to scan the chassis so they can easily take a look at, oh, wait a minute, the suspension here is not right. This diffuser is not installed in the normal, technical, way, right? Insert Monica engineering talk here. But with the Dallara 12, that is such an old chassis that has just been updated for so long. They won't be able to leverage that type of technology just yet. But knowing that they're looking on standardizing the process, on, scanning practices before the new cars debut. They're looking at assessments after races to identify any compliance issues quicker. So that way we're not finding out like attenuator gate. We're literally finding it out on live television as they're hitting the grid. You're going to have the ability to have some more quality control, not only on the perception of IndyCar, but also on like manufacturing and partnering with Dallara to be able to have specific, consistent specs for the new cars that are coming in 2028. So as a tech nerd, I think that's really exciting just to be able to see that, as somebody who loves gossip and tech, attenuator gate, push to pass gate, while it sucked for Penske, not saying it didn't suck for them. It sucked for the drivers. It sucked for the team morale. It sucked for, the top three that got basically fired because of it. But the gossip brought headlines, which brought new eyeballs to the sport. Maybe not in a positive way. I'm not saying that every single person that came from a Penske cheating again headline was thinking with good intention. But bad press, good press is still press. And so knowing that now, Penske went, okay, we're doing this and we're doing it the right way. And with Doug Bowles as president, I can see these changes. And as a fan, I'm like, okay, I'm enthusiastic about this. I'm optimistic about this. Am I still holding my breath to say, is it going to work? Yes, because it's always the first pancake. We'll see what happens this year. And I know there's probably going to be tons of, skepticism and questions, and that's Doug Bowles' job. He gets paid the big bucks to deal with that. And it's also the job now of I think they call it the IOB, the Independent Officiating Board, to be able to, handle these mishaps or situations that they haven't thought of, right? Especially before the new car drops in 2 seasons. So I don't know. IndyCar is getting more technical with it. I think, with Ronan Morgan coming from the FIA, we've all seen the crazy technical inspections that the FIA do with F1 cars. That experience will be helpful in IndyCar for sure. So enough about technical stuff. Let's get into the drivers, okay? We had some, may I say, incredible Andretti content on 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time on New Year's Eve, or New Year's Day, I guess. So I'm just chilling, right? I'm chilling on my couch, scrolling the interwebs, and I'm in Central Standard Time Zone, so I'm an hour behind Eastern Standard. And I'm looking at all these amazing photos, and people are doing their 2025 photo dumps and all of that. And then I see Will Power going for a run, talking about how excited he is about Andretti. And for a moment, I was like, Will, what the hell are you doing? But then I forgot. And then I realized, oh my God, his Penske contract expired literally at 11:59 on December 31st. And at 12 o'clock, he was already like, hi, Andretti, I'm happy to be here. And it was incredible. It was awesome. Like, I kind of forgot, like, I already officially now just kind of have closed the door of Will being at Penske, and he's just an Andretti man now. But Will just looks lighter. He looks excited again. He looks happy. I think one of the articles that I read was that it gave off a first day of school vibes. And I'm so happy for him. Think about being at an employer for 16 years, right? 16 years. You basically grew a majority of your adult life there. You started a family there. You got, you met your partner. You got married. You spent so much time there through the incredible goods, the 500 win, the championships, the wins, the podiums, the poles, right? And then you're going to this new team who you know these people, you see them, you've seen majority of them in some capacity over the last 16 years. There's new faces, there's old faces, but they don't know you, right? And you kind of have to revisit who you are, right? Like, who am I as a driver? And I think that that's exciting to feel like a freshman in high school again, being like, I can pick who I want to be. Do I want to join band? Do I want to be a football star? Do I want to do dance? Do I want to be on the mathletes group? He has now this opportunity to really rebuild the last era of racing for him. Let's be honest here. Will is not aging backwards, but he is aging in a way that he gets better and better every damn year. Like, he's still winning. He's still, trying to beat out Alex Palou. He's still the only person to beat Alex Palou in a championship. Oh my God. And so you have this new embarking journey, and, you impressed Penske right away. So now you're joining Andretti. So the bar is set really high. And Will was testing in the 26, and I love everyone being like, the 26 and 2026, like, the cards could really be in his favor for this year. But just watching, it was also freezing in Phoenix, because for those who don't know, when you think about Arizona and Phoenix, you're like, oh, it's a desert, it's hot all the time. In January and December, Phoenix gets chilly. It's not freezing. It's not like, Buffalo, New York cold. But it wasn't very productive, I guess, from a test perspective, just because it limited his testing ability, because it was that cold. You can't get temperature in the tires when it's that cold. But Will left with positive impressions and excitement about working with his new team. And just, he keeps reinforcing and emphasizing his love for this sport and the desire to perform well. I just want him to do well. I want him to break the Andretti curse, because we don't need that anymore in Andretti. Give Andretti the opportunity to win a championship. Give the opportunity for Andretti to win the 500. Give Andretti the opportunity to not only have Will be successful, but also coach Kyle Kirkwood, because he's like such a young and incredible driver. And then you have somebody like Marcus Ericsson who I don't know if struggled is the right word. He had a up and then down season, right? He kind of was just there, right? He was just Sunday driving. So hopefully the three of them can come together and just really have an amazing season and take that amazing season to the likes of Alex Palou. There's no one else. Those three, the only guy that's on their little like dartboard is Alex, because he's unstoppable. And what's going to stop him in 2026, or who's going to stop him in 2026, right? So I am so excited for Will. It's just, damn Will. I'm going to have to buy more Andretti merch. Elena has enough, or maybe she wants some more. I don't know. We will be rocking a lot of Andretti merch. And it just was announced today that he's getting a commercial. Will Power is going to have a commercial on national television, and they are going to use some amazing middle fingers. And I can already see that they're going to pull this like Australian, like who just doesn't give a fuck, and how amazing he is. But yet he's a family guy and he's a husband and a dad. I cannot wait for that commercial. Like, yes, we talked about it. You know, Joseph's going to get another commercial. Paddle's going to get another commercial. And of course, Palou's going to get another commercial. But they had their chance last year. And the bar for them is, what else are you guys going to do this year? Which I'm excited about. But Will fucking Power has a commercial. And when it comes out, I'm probably going to watch it 470,000 majillion times. And I'm going to be like, this is my favorite commercial of all time. And that's the commercial that they should play it during the Super Bowl, because that man deserves every moment under the sun. Okay, I'm hopping off the Will Power super amazing, I love Will Power fan bus for a second, to also talk about, we still haven't heard much around two things. We have one, Mr. Dale Coyne. It is January. You promised us a driver lineup on Halloween. We gave you some grace there because Renus, and he left. You told us we'll have something to be grateful for on Thanksgiving. Nothing. So we said, okay, well, us fans, we've been good all year. Maybe Santa will leave a little Dale Coyne gift underneath our Christmas tree. Many of us woke up, and alas, there wasn't even a card from Dale underneath our trees. And then we rang in the new year and went, New Year, new seat? Nope. What's next? Valentine's Day? Dale better be writing every single IndyCar fan a love letter about who's going to be in that second seat. We did hear that Connor's basically out. That Dale has stopped calling him. Dale has ghosted him, like he ghosted all of us. So I highly doubt that Connor's going to be Dale's Valentine. So that basically leaves us with what? Linus Lundqvist, Roman Grosjean. I'm assuming it's probably going to be one of those two. Or we're going to get some crazy news that he's only running one seat, but he's got two charters, so I don't know why he would do that. Tinfoil hat, he can, is it 2 or 3 different drivers a season per a charter? We may go back to the good old Dale days of, we don't have a full season with one driver. We have maybe 2 drivers that bring in 2 different budgets for ovals only, or road and streets only, or first half of the season, second half of the season. But come on, Dale. Because after Valentine's Day, you're showing up to St. Pete, and we got to know, right? Like poor Renus showed up to not even media day last year. He had to show up to Fox to basically take his headshot, film his intro video, and do everything like lickety split. Like I remember he didn't even have a Dale Coyne race suit to be able to do it. It was like in a generic black one. I don't want to find out who the second individual is by some IndyCar driver by accident leaking a media day entry video where you see everyone coming in. So yeah, Dale, I like chocolates with my Valentine. I know Milena likes chocolates with hers. So all of us are patiently waiting for your love note about who you decided to, have as your second. But Dale, at least you're consistent. At least, I think majority of the fans would have been like, holy shit, Dale gave us 2 drivers before the end of the year before, 2 months before the season. But Daled. We're still waiting. At this point, anyone could be driving it. Hinge could be driving it for all we know. I don't want to start that rumor, so we won't. And also, we still have no update on Prema. I did see a photo that Callum Ilott shared on his Instagram story of him driving up to the Prema office in Indiana. So it's good to know that that office still stands. But everything that I've been hearing is that Prema is good. But we haven't heard anything about like confirmation from the team. But then I got to thinking, did Prema ever come out professionally, like as a press release or a media engagement to say the future of our team is in danger? No. While everyone is speculating and everyone's talking about, well, what's going on with Prema? What's going on with Prema? Is Schwartzman coming back? Is Ilott coming back? Are they going to just run a run car because, it's expensive to run to and they're not a charter team? And then you have somebody like Dreyer Reinball Racing who really wants to come back to IndyCar. Then you're going to have to qualify to get in because there are going to be more unchartered teams and charter teams get in, blah, 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 blah. But technically Prema doesn't have to say shit because legally, per the media, they didn't even say that they were in danger. So we're just going to have to wait to say Pete unless they take something out in the next, before this major test that happens in the next couple of weeks. But they're going to have to start testing, right? Like, if Callum is showing up to Prema in Indianapolis, then that means that they probably are having conversations or at least starting the program, right? Like many of these teams took the holiday, but now they're kicking off 2026. Like the season has started for IndyCar teams. They need to prep the teams. They need to start, practicing pit stops. They need to start, getting everything, ready for St. Pete. They got to figure their shit out, right? So by this point, Prema should have said something. So I think I'm sorry to say, but I don't think we're going to get anything official. I genuinely don't think until IndyCar drops the official 2026 driver lineup. I think that's where we're going to find out if Prema's on the lineup or not. And that's basically what's going to happen. And if they're not on the lineup, then they'll release a presser and say, hey, this is the reason why that we're not going to be doing it based on financial reasons. We couldn't get a financial backer. Or they started working with the drivers on getting sponsorship and actually putting sponsors on the car. And I know that they didn't want to do that, but this is IndyCar. You need sponsors on the car. It's expensive. It's really expensive to run an IndyCar team, especially 2 cars right out of the gate, especially when Prema's had to make some concessions on some other motorsport series around whether or not they're going to be financially supporting them or not in the future, especially in 2026. So we shall wait. I shall sip my espresso and wait for Prema I don't even think it's going to be Prema. I can't until IndyCar decides to drop the driver lineup for 2026. But Callum visiting is a good sign. I'm going to take it. I'm going to say it's a good sign that Callum and Schwartzy are back on the grid and it's going to be a better season. Yeah. I'm going to start 2026 with some positive vibes. And then finally, just kind of some non-IndyCar news, but IndyCar news. Speaking of that Dale Coyne seat, everyone was saying, oh, well, maybe Jacob Abel will go back there. If Dale can't find sponsors, like Jacob, like he brings good funding. So maybe Dale will go back and say, hey, you can come back. But it has been announced that he's going to be racing in LMP2. So Jacob has found another ride elsewhere. So I think that IndyCar chapter for now has been closed for Jacob for 2026. I wish him all the luck in LMP2. I will be cheering him from my couch when I watch those races, but I think it's officially okay to say that door is closed for now. Just for now. So, all right. So now that we've talked about all the news, what I wanted to do for the next couple of weeks is Melena and I are going to go into just the basics. But last year when we kicked off this podcast, we went in just swinging. We were like, all right, here are the drivers, here are the teams, blah, 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 blah. But we realized that with the addition of Mick and with IndyCar growing and becoming more well known of a racing series, there's been a lot of newer fans that have been coming, and hopefully some of our new listeners on the podcast around, what are the basics? What are the specifications of the car? What's the difference of the tires that they use and what tracks do they race at? And, what's qualifying like, and the point system. Oh God, let's get into leadership circle points and the charter system, right? This is all new if you're coming from F1, for example, right? Like if you're an F1 fan, you know the ins and outs of everything. In IndyCar, with it being a spec series, right, there's a lot of differences that go on to it. And then you add oval racing and the logistics and the racing that goes into oval racing. So for this last segment, for this week's episode, we're going to go into more around the specs of the Dallara IR12 chassis and just talk a little bit of basics. Monica's not a mechanic. She's not an engineer. She just literally wrote down how she can explain it in layman's terms about this chassis that is still going to be here for the 26 and 27 season. And then we'll talk a little bit about the tires and what different tires IndyCar teams use throughout the race weekend, depending on also the tracks that they race at. And then we'll take some time just to talk a little bit about what tracks and the differences of the tracks that the IndyCar team races. And then take a look at the schedule and talk a little bit about some new races as well. First, we'll really kick off into the specifications for the Dallara IR12 chassis. Anna and I had the opportunity of going to the Dallara factory at Speedway during the Indy 500 last year. And it was definitely an amazing experience just to kind of get to see how these chassis are built and also how flippin' expensive every single piece of this carbon fiber car is. Like a front wing or a back wing of one of these cars is like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And Melena and I were like, what? Wait, you mean that this suspension rod costs 20 grand? Ma'am. So it was definitely a great opportunity just to kind of get to see how the soup is made. We were also able to touch and feel a lot of the carbon fiber parts, which was really cool. So Dallara is the manufacturer of the chassis, hence the name, the Dallara IR12. Dallara was and is originally from Italy. They do have factories in Italy, but they do have one in Speedway that directly supports the IndyCar series. And when you're thinking about the actual chassis of an Indy car, there are some differences according to it being a spec series. A lot of the differences are around F1 cars, for example. So when you're thinking about the cockpit of the Dallara IR12, you actually have an aero screen on it. So for those of you who are familiar with the halo in F1, when you look at the halo, you can see that there's a gap between the actual roll hoop and then you have, or the top of the halo, excuse me, and then you have just like in between the bars, you can actually like put your hand out and you can do things. In IndyCar, it's an aero screen. So think about like a windshield in your vehicle when you're driving. It's basically a windshield for the halo of an IndyCar. So you have that, which means that you have this aero screen on it. So when you see drivers, when you see your first pit stop in IndyCar, you'll see that there is somebody specifically on the pit wall that will take off basically how they take off their visor stickies. It's also a sticky that you'll be able to take off the windshield. So that keeps the windshield clean from, bugs, marbles, dirt, whatever, fuel, whatever else is coming off of these race cars. The other thing is they have a fuel tank that you refuel. So when you're thinking about the differences of the main body, you have, the aero screen and you have the fact that these cars have a smaller fuel tank, which because they do refuel during the race. all of the actual components of the vehicle. So you think about the suspension, you think about the structure, the hybrid units, the rear suspensions, the wings, those are all specs. So the teams have to use the same ones. There are areas of the vehicle that you could actually change from like an aerodynamic perspective that teams can work on. So a diffuser, which is in the back of the vehicle, is one of the areas that engineers, like there are chief like engineering diffuser people on IndyCar teams that focus on, diffuser information and what diffusers are best for road courses, for street courses, for ovals, et cetera, even for the drivers. If you want to go even tinfoil hat, when you saw the news about the FBI raiding the RLL HQ, it was because of like trade secrets coming from another team around like diffuser technology and other technologies that, teams can change versus other things that are directly from Dallara and their spec. So all of the chassis are built with, strong carbon fiber, Kevlar, and other light materials. But this thing ain't light, okay? So when you think about the weight of an Indy car, it's around 1,800 pounds for road and street courses. And then it's around 1,700 pounds for short ovals and 1,600 pounds for speedways. So they say they trim out the vehicles for speedways. And when they say trim out, it's because they're reducing weight. These things are, if you think about it, it's 200 pounds. Imagine when you see like a vehicle that is packed to the brim with like, let's say you went camping and you cut a bunch of logs for firewood and you fill up the back of your car with all this heavy, dense wood. You'll see your car get heavier and it's slower, right? It takes a little bit longer to accelerate. If you're going up a freaking bump, it's going to be sluggish. But then let's say you remove half of that wood and drop it off at your campsite. Your car is going to be like, whoop, I'm lighter. I can actually react very quicker. So that's why they do a little bit more trimming out in weight for ovals and speedways. The size of the actual vehicle, the length is about 200 inches. The width is about 75 inches. The height is only 40 inches. So when you're near one of these, you're like, oh, these are little shorties. I like it. And the wheelbase sizes are depending on front and back. 117 in the front, maybe 121 in the back. The wheels of the actual Indy cars, so you have the front wheels, which are 15 inches wide and 10 inches tall. And then the rear wheels are actually larger in the back, where they are still 15 inches wide, but they're 14 inches tall. So when you look at an Indy car, the tires actually do a little bit of this, like a little bit of an angle. And these tires are specifically made for all of the teams by Firestone. And they're called Firestone Firehawk tires. So you'll definitely get to see the lovely Firehawk mascot at every other race. Take a photo with them. They love it. They're incredible. They're on, they're at the podium when everyone, is getting their trophies, and they're there when in victory lane. Firehawk, hello. We love you. But the Firestones, there's technically 4 different tires. So you have your rain tires. So you have tires that are engineered for wet conditions that have, groove tread pattern, and wet tires are only used on road and street courses. So if it's raining at the 500, if it's raining at an oval, IndyCar does not race. There's no wet tires for ovals. That would be too dangerous, right? Then you have the primary black tire. These are going to be, they're suitable for all track types. They are known for their balancing of speed, their cornering ability, and they're durable. So they're going to be your hard tire in F1, right? Your white-walled hard tires in F1. You also have your alternate red tires. These are going to be a softer compound for increased speed and better cornering. And these are going to be used exclusively on permanent road courses. So you have the red tires, which is equivalent to the red softs in F1, but they're only used on road tracks. When you're looking at street courses, they're using what is called the alternate green tire. So these were introduced in 2023 by Firestone. They are used for the temporary street courses, and they're made with natural rubber from a guayule shrub in Arizona. So from a sustainability perspective, Firestone is using these green tires basically to test out if they probably can use them as the alternate red on permanent road tracks, but they are trying to see if they can use reusable or green, hence the name, tires in racing. So you'll get to see the greens, which are the softs, basically, with the primary blacks on street courses. And then you'll see the primary blacks and the reds on road courses. And then for ovals, there's one type of tire, right? I know that in 2025, they have tested out leveraging two different, tire types for ovals. Nothing has been officially like done for other oval races in 2026, but for street and road courses, they have to use two different types of tires unless it's wet conditions. And all of the tires are produced at the Bridgestone Advanced Tire Production Center in Akron, Ohio. And sustainability is what they're really trying to do. They're trying to connect sustainability with performance. So I can see more work being done around the green tires moving forward. Finally, from a fuel tank, like I mentioned before, they refuel an IndyCar. So the fuel tank holds about 18.5 gallons of fuel, and that tank will not be enough to finish an IndyCar race. So they at times fuel once to 4 times, or in the Indy 500, they fuel multiple times. But with the fuel tanks and fuel mileage, you have 2 different engine manufacturers in 2026. You have Honda engines and Chevrolet engines. And the models are going to be a Honda hybrid and then a Chevy hybrid V6 engine. Specific teams use a specific manufacturer. So in an upcoming episode, we'll definitely take time to break down which teams leverage which engine. But when you think about like fuel sustainability and fuel mileage, the first thing you think of is Scott Dixon is the fuel managing king, and he drives a Honda. Right. So Honda has better mileage, but then there might be a week where you have a driver that's in a Chevy that's just like kicking ass and having amazing fuel mileage. So now let's kick off into the 2026 schedule. So for IndyCar and Indy Next, the teams race on 3 different track types. You're going to have street tracks. So these are going to be temporary circuits on closed public streets and airport runways, which is really cool. You have St. Pete, which literally isn't an airport, which is going to feature basically just track and walls. You also have your permanent road courses. These are going to be racing facilities that resemble street tracks, but do not just have concrete walls. So you're going to have, very, very similar tracks to like Mid-Ohio and Road America. And for street tracks, you have Detroit and St. Pete. And then you have oval tracks. You have different types of ovals. You have super speedways, and then you have short ovals. And these are going to be they're round, but they're banked and uniquely shaped for high speeds. And the Indy 500, of course, is the most notable super speedway oval that IndyCar races at. Then you have the schedule. So when you're thinking about these different types of tracks, you have 5 street races in 2026. You have 6 road races, and then you have 6 ovals. So when you're thinking about our schedule, IndyCar kicks off on March 1st at St. Pete, which is a street race. And then the next race is going to be a street race as well in Arlington. Arlington is not after that. You're going to have Phoenix then. I'm looking at my calendar and I'm like, wait a minute, I flipped Phoenix and Arlington. You're going to have Phoenix Raceway, which is a doubleheader with NASCAR, and that is going to be a new race, and it's going to be an oval. So we're actually going to be able to have an oval before the Indy 500. Then you have the Arlington Street Race, which is going to be, the Cowboys are involved. Everything's bigger in Texas. Everyone's going to love Pato. It's basically Pato's home-ish race compared to Mexico. And then you go to Barber, which is a road course at the end of March. Then we go to Long Beach, which is the street race. And then we start the month of May. The month of May is almost explicitly raced in the Indianapolis Speedway, minus I guess Detroit is technically on May 31st, but you have the Indy GP, which is actually a really cool race. The Indy GP actually leverages the oval components of the speedway, but also at IMS there is a road course that they have in the center of the actual track. So you have the oval on the outside, and then you have a road course in the center. So what they do is they take parts of the oval, especially around turns 1 and turns 4. And then in the center of the speedway, it's actually a road course. It's really cool. I think it's IndyCar's version of a mini Roval, but it's not like the Charlotte Roval, which is a little bit more insane. And then you have the Indy 500, of course. You end basically May, but basically kick off June in Detroit as a street race. For many, many years, Detroit has always been the weekend right after the Indy 500. I still don't understand why they won't give these poor drivers like a week off. Like, it's like, all right, you just spent 3 weeks, not even 4 weeks, planning the Indy GP, practice for the 500, qualies, the 500. Oh, you know what? We're going to take you to Detroit for a street race where the walls are really tight and it is like carnage central. But Detroit is a lovely street race to watch if you love just chaos, and just some of our most incredible moments in IndyCar have happened in Detroit. Then you kick off June, where you go to Gateway, which is the oval that has all of the amazing flames, and it's a short oval, and it is IndyCar's night race. It's actually at night, and I cannot wait to see all the cars under the lights. And then you go to one of my favorite tracks, and it's always on my birthday weekend, Road America, which is another a road course in Mid-Ohio for 4th of July is also a road course. And then there's been some changes. Nashville is no longer the last race of the season. Nashville, which is an oval, is actually going to be in July this year. And so the teams go from Nashville, and then they go to Portland, which is a road course. And then we're going to the last new race. So normally we race in Toronto, in the streets of Toronto. Moving forward, we will be racing in Markham, Canada. It's still going to be a street race, but it's going to be a new layout, new location, all of that jazz. And then we end the season with 3 races. We end August with a doubleheader in Milwaukee at the Milwaukee Mile, which are both they're both short oval races. And then Laguna Seca is back on the calendar as the final race of the season, which is a road course. So you can see, you have the opportunity to hit an oval in Phoenix before the Indy 500. The street races are kind of like peppered in there, just like, hey, street race here, street race here, street race here. And then you have these like very pillared locations like Road America, Mid-Ohio, Barber, that are these incredible like standalone racetracks around the United States. There have been some races that have fallen off the calendar for 2026, Iowa doubleheader being one of them, and Thermal. Iowa was a short oval, as well as Thermal was, I would say, it's a road course, even though it's in like a gated community. But it'll be very interesting to see what happens, especially with some of these Indy Next rookies and individuals like Mick, who have the opportunity to race on an oval before the Indy 500, and then really get to see if Texas is going to be on the calendar, right? IndyCar has raced in Texas at the Speedway there, which is an oval, for many years. And then it dropped off the calendar just because I think low attendance and there were promoter issues with the track. And everyone was always saying, come back to Texas, come back to Texas. Well, IndyCar did it big in partnership with the Texas Rangers and the Texas Cowboys. They are racing through the streets in between those two stadiums. So we'll get to really see if that's going to be something that stays on the calendar, or if it's going to be similar to like, it'll be back on the calendar every, let's say, few seasons or so. Well, the biggest piece of news around the schedule was that Mexico was not happening this year. And I do think that with the World Cup being literally in the middle of the IndyCar season, I think there were just some scheduling issues and cost, I think, issues. But I do know that Pato is very passionate about pushing Mexico. God, I could not even imagine. They show up for NASCAR, they show up for Formula E, they show up for the F1 race now that even Checo's back. Like, this is, I think, the time to have Pato have his moment and his flowers in Mexico City. 2027, put that fucking thing on the calendar, okay? All right. So that's basically very high level overview of just some general basics. Over the next couple of episodes, we're going to take some time to talk a little bit about qualifying and leadership circle points, as well as like race schedules and how a day-to-day race weekend looks like at IndyCar. And then we'll also talk a little bit about like track, flags and, safety cars and, how they handle certain things. And really, before the season kicks off, really spend some time just hopefully we'll have the Dale Coyne and Prima situation done, but just announce who's driving for who, what they're, if they had, experience last year, where they ended up in the championship, are they a rookie? And then Melena and I will provide some lovely predictions. As you know, if you've listened to us, we're pretty spicy with our predictions, and we'll also predict, our podium and our winners. And we'll also be doing an Indy Next intro episode as well. So if you're interested in the Junior Feeder series into IndyCar, Indy Next is the name of that series. We're going to be spending a little bit more time talking about Indy Next this season, just because our favorites, Cusick Motorsports, is going to be on the grid as Cusick Morgan Motorsport. And fangirl moment number 2, we have Juan Manuel Correa racing for them. So as avid fans of that team, we will be spending some more time talking about Indy Next and the road to IndyCar, and see if there's going to be anyone who is a championship favorite. So if you're interested in that episode will also come out before the beginning of the IndyCar season. So thank you so much for listening to a solo Monica episode. If there's anything that you guys want us to talk about for this season, if it's, more hot gossip, more, collaborations with other, podcast series or other series in general. I know we're an IndyCar podcast, that is our home, but, there may be some weekends where there's no IndyCar race happening and there might be another race going on that we can chit chat about. So, this is going to be the year that we continue to grow and adapt and, make this podcast better. And we're very excited about it. And once again, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. If you want to follow us on social, you can find us at Lap It Like It's Hot on, Instagram, TikTok, and on all major social platforms. And if you want to continue listening to us, please, you can follow us on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, and on Spotify. And shameless plug here, any engagement is good engagement. So if you can subscribe, give us a 5-star review, comment, do all that fun stuff. We want to just make sure that we talk to a community that wants to learn about IndyCar, because we're equally as obsessed with IndyCar as other folks are. And if you're not obsessed with IndyCar, join us. So thank you once again. Hopefully we'll hear from you guys soon. And thank you so much for listening, and we'll see ya. Bye.